Week 4 of the Idaho legislative session is in the books, and here to discuss what we saw this week, we bring back political analyst and College of Idaho professor Jasper Licalzi. Jasper, thanks for being here again. Tell
4
us,
weeks already.
Time flies by. Yeah, 25 legislative days I heard this morning. Crazy.
Really?
Well, let me start though with something that we saw from the minority party, a big docket of standards, policies, even some bills that were included in that, and they're calling it the Creating Opportunity Plan. And what are your thoughts about this plan?
To me, it doesn't look like, and they might argue with me about this, it's not really a legislative agenda, and I think that's somewhat separate, that they do have specific bills. But I look at this, and I have my copy here, it looks more like a party platform. It looks like something that would pass in the state convention that they have. I give them credit for using action verbs. We're talking, we're ensuring, we're defending, we're investing, we're safeguarding, we're holding government account.
Strong words.
Strong words, action words, which is good. But there's not a whole lot of details to it. Again, there's some of the details in the legislation. But besides increasing the minimum wage that's in here, there's also, besides Medicaid expansion, which we don't call Medicaid expansion.
We had,
it's not that lot.
You know, with that specific one, though, this is one that did get a hearing.
Yes.
Even though it wasn't going to be something that was going to be voted on. And so we do see at least some movement. Is there any prayer for the number of other issues, including some access for Medicare for seniors, different voting registration access online? Do you think there's going to be hope for seeing any hearings similar on those issues?
It all comes up to the committee chairs, and I think it depends on the committee chair and where it's going to. It also depends on the relationship the Democrat has with their committee chair. We saw that some with the Medicaid expansion. Hey, he's my colleague. It'll depend on how soon they get him. The later we go, the less likely. But if it's an issue, and to some extent a number of these are, which are still kind of popular, seem like they make sense, you could get some hearings on them, and there could be some that pass. You
know, that was the big question that I actually asked Democratic leadership this past week was, you have an issue, minimum wage is a great example, where polls show 70% of Idahoans back and support increasing the minimum wage a small amount, and yet it seems like they're not able to take policy like that and translate it outside of the legislature into political votes, into votes for candidates that would then represent more areas. They're stuck at 20% representation in the Statehouse.
Well, people vote on a number of different issues, and not just on economic issues, and it's how you frame them. So you can say, well, 70% support a minimum wage. Our parties prefer minimum wage. We should get 70% of the vote. But a lot of people aren't voting on that, and they're voting on maybe social issues, maybe non-economic issues, a number of other things. When you throw it this year also, there's a presidential election. So they're going to vote for, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton, I'm voting for the Republican there, I'm going to vote for the Republican all the way down.
Right, it spreads throughout the ballot.
So you have coattails and such like that. I think this is a good step forward, though, for the Democrats to clearly lay out, this is what we believe in, and this is what our party believes in, and if you agree with this, you can vote for it. But it's easy for them to do. There's not that many of them to come to an agreement on.
And they don't have to go forward in a unified group or worried about finding such a unified group because the caucus is relatively small.
Right.
Interesting thing, before we move on to a caucus that's bigger in the Statehouse, something that wasn't part of their plan, that was a bit of a surprise to a number of people, add the words, not part of that plan.
Yeah, I think this, and I thought it was on here. I saw this part that said defending your rights, and I figured, okay, that's where add the words is going to be. But it isn't, but that's pretty specific. I think right now they're looking at a compromise coming down the road with some of the, you would call more moderate Republicans, and they don't want to put anything out here that is, hey, add the words or nothing else. We have to add specifically those 3 words and nothing else, and that's all we're going to do. So I think they don't want to draw a line in the sand here with something like that. So. But yeah, that was one of the first things I look forward to, Jake.
Right, interesting. Well, let's move on to the other caucus in the Statehouse, the Republican caucus, and we're seeing some fracturing happening over a bill brought forward, tax cut brought forward by the majority leadership in the House, and we're seeing Governor Otter has come out with a public opinion that sort of subtly, for those who aren't paying attention, digs at their decision to bring forward this cut.
It's very subtle, and I'm sure that's the way the governor is in the newspaper. I'm sure some of his aides and maybe even he himself in personal is a little less subtle.
Sure.
I've been familiar with Governor Otter for many years, and in person he'll get to the point. What he's basically saying is, hey, we need money for education.
Right.
Don't do anything that's going to keep us from being able to fund education. Well, the elephant in the room, and literally we think about Republicans, it's the elephant in the room, is the tax cut that you talk about that Moyle put forward, which is going to cost $30 million, something like that.
Give or take a little bit, yeah.
A million here, a million there. So it's going to cost that, and the governor's saying indirectly, if you pass it, that's where we're going to get the money from education. But it's a broader attack on that. But I think what he's really saying is, you know, guys, I don't want that bill. Mm-hmm. Possibly if push came to shove, he might veto that bill. The last thing everybody wants is for the governor to veto a tax cut. That's going to cause problems for everybody.
Right.
What he really wants is the senators to have it go away. Somehow this goes away somewhere. So I think that's really the message that's going out there. And the reason he goes in the newspaper, why didn't he say that face to face? I'm sure he's doing some of that, is to get the public on his side. Mm-hmm. And this is old Ronald Reagan technique. I'm going to go over the head of the legislators right to the public. And if you agree with me, contact your state senator and tell them what you believe.
That's right. It ends at the bottom of his little opinion saying, contact your lawmaker and let them know how you feel.
Exactly. I mean, and Ronald Reagan was the greatest at this. He could get on TV, be supporting something that the polls show were really quite low. Within 6 months, completely turned around, and the phones would be ringing off the hook on Capitol Hill. Mm-hmm. That's what Governor Otter is looking for, and this is a message that's been coming from his administration and from him throughout. You know, businesses, you want to help business, they need qualified workers. The taxes aren't that bad, the regulations aren't that bad, but they need qualified workers. That means more education. Let's push for that. And I think, again, this isn't a strictly education position. This is a business education,
right.
Business position, and that's what people are telling them, asking them for.
And that is the tactic that we're seeing on numerous education bills. Education is the key topic focused in this year's session, but whether it's early education, STEM education, within all of those arguments in the debates, we're seeing the business element heavily featured as reasons to implement and take that added cost.
Because the businesses have gotten across, hey, we're either going to have to leave, or if we stay here, we're going to have to import other workers, and that's expensive for us and such like that. Businesses want a large labor pool. Mm-hmm. If there's a lot of people out there qualified to do the job, hey, I don't have to pay them as much. But also, they'll be getting jobs which are higher pay. So it's a really win-win for both sides. The workers do better, too, because they're getting a higher pay because they're doing more qualified jobs instead of people coming from out of state.
Right. Well, Jasper, that's all the time that we have. Again, thank you for coming by here. We're going to be doing this every week throughout the legislative session. And, of course, throughout the week, be sure to tune in to the Inside the Statehouse page on our website, KIVITV.com.